Hey guys, it's Holly, and this is my sister, Heidi.
Hi.
She's visiting with her two beautiful daughters, and I thought it would be an awesome opportunity for her to share kind of her experience growing up in the crazy, amazing family that we grew up in. I already shared a little bit about living back and forth between Mexico and the US and my experience learning Spanish. But Heidi's 7 years older than me, so her life is just completely different and her experience was completely different. So we were talking a little bit about it and I was like, hold that thought, we gotta turn on the camera. So, I guess, let's see. Let's start off with
Beginning.
Let's go from the beginning.
Okay, so when I was 7, we were living in the States. Well, we'll go back. But I was born in Mexico. You
Right.
were born in the States.
So
I was
Heidi is
born in
actually Mexican.
Yes. And I lived there till I was 3, and we spent most of our time between a small, very rural village where Aztec was spoken in Spanish.
Tetelcingo?
In Tetelcingo, Morelos, the state of Morelos, and right near the town where I was born in Puebla. And then we were also in Mexico City, back and forth during that time. And one of my earliest memories, we were in Tetelcingo, and I had to be at the most 3 because we moved to the States when I was 3. And I was sitting there thinking, wow, I'm thinking in English right now. But if my parents had spoken Spanish or Aztec to me, I would be thinking in Spanish or Aztec. I wonder what that feels like. And throughout my life, I remember having this fascination of what is it like to think in another language, whether Spanish or whatever.
You must be the daughter of a linguist, because I'm sorry, but I am floored by a 3-year-old having a thought that profound.
I was totally fascinated by
Wow.
And just how does that make you different? And as I learned Spanish, and there's a saying that when you learn a language, you gain another soul. And I see how it does enrich your life and your thoughts and your perspectives and understandings of what's going on, or different ways to express it or view it, I guess. But anyway, we did move to the States when I was 3, and we lived in California until I was almost 7.
That's pretty stable right there for our family. 4 years?
Yeah, pretty good. And I remember in preschool running around yelling casa and feeling very accomplished. And my my domination of the Spanish language and my superiority over my poor monolingual classmates.
Classic Heidi.
I remember in kindergarten bragging to a classmate that I was from Mexico, and she said, well, New Mexico or Old Mexico? And I was just floored. You mean there's 2? I guess it's the old one, but don't quote me on that.
When all else fails, it's the old one.
Shortly after Holly's birth, we moved back to Mexico, and we were there for about 2.5 years, so that would have been 2nd grade through 4th grade for me. And during that time we moved, every few months in my memory, we were between Mexico City or the state of Oaxaca or in Veracruz.
What was going on? Why?
Well, Dad was just starting to learn a new dialect of Aztec.
Okay.
And so he would go in Mexico City and in Oaxaca. I think he could get together with other colleagues and work on his language learning project and just the linguistic aspect of it. I'm not sure why. I think that was the main thing, was to work with other colleagues, other linguists. And then also my older brother and I were doing schooling generally by correspondence, but when we would go to Mexico City or Oaxaca, we actually had a teacher who spoke English and who would grade our work and stuff. And so it might have been partly for our schooling as well. I'm not even sure.
We'll have to
entirely
consult them on
when
that.
we were out in the village, as we called it, it was because my dad was learning Aztec. Our dad was learning Aztec.
Got it.
And I remember when we were in the village, my 3rd grade year, my parents put my older brother and myself in the village school, which was quite an experience. During that time, I was doing my real school in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'd go to the village school. And I tried to make friends. the main thing I remember, like the bulk of our conversation was, how do you say this in English? 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 And me being like, pen.
How do I say overwhelming in
Yeah.
English? Which, by the way, I don't remember.
Or they were very generous in giving me candies, a lot of which I really didn't want to put in my mouth, but here, have this, and I didn't want to offend anyone, and it was very overwhelming, to the point that one day in the middle of the class, which the teacher would leave for lengthy periods of time, and they would all come and crowd around me. And so I remember in the middle of class, she was gone, and they were all crowding, and I was done. So I just stood up with my backpack and started spinning around so no one would touch me, because I just couldn't.
That's like my dance move at the club. Elbows. That's awesome.
And I would read. I'd take Nancy Drew and I would read. And I'm a reader, probably more than you, and I was perfectly content in my Nancy Drew world and didn't have a social need to learn Spanish at that point. I'm the second of 5 kids. So we all love each other, and we had super tons of fun together. So between my books and my siblings and then my friends when we were in Oaxaca and Mexico City, there wasn't
a need,
an emotional need.
Right. And you tapped into something that like is really important for language learning, which is having that need to communicate. And if you don't feel like you even care about communicating with the people that are around you, whether it's because you're already doing school somewhere else or because you're just not that invested in them emotionally, then you're not going to feel as compelled to try to push yourself to communicate in a new language.
And I think, especially there, I felt like our worlds were so different. I didn't even know how to try to bridge that gap. And, the efforts that I did make, I weren't always successful. I remember playing hopscotch, and the girl behind me was kind of done with me jumping, so she just knocked me to the ground and jumped on over, and I was like, I think I'm done with hopscotch now. Like, it's not worth it. Why?
Oh my goodness.
So
why was your life so different than mine?
It was different.
Okay, so then
we ended up going to Arizona for a couple of years. So that was through 6th grade, and then we moved back to Mexico for
just
7th grade.
The ripeness of
and
adolescence.
My parents were like, oh, 7th grade. There's only so much we can handle. Choose your battles sort of a thing. And so we've already pulled her from her friends in Arizona. We're not going to put her in a Mexican school. We're going to put her in a school where it's in English and, ease her
it was
back
a missionary kids school in English. It was very small, and Heidi was like,
I was in the biggest
popular
class,
girl,
and we had 9 students.
Wow.
Yes.
Look at y'all.
Yeah. And I was all that, I thought.
I thought you were only 2. I was 7 at the time, and she was 14 and living large.
And again, I had these great friends. We'd do tons of trips, and why I did not have an emotional need to learn Spanish. I understood enough to get by. I could do what I needed to do at the store.
What about the hour-long sermons on Sundays?
I understood the gist of what he was saying, and I was content.
So that year goes by. Heather and I, my sister that's closer in age to me, we're learning Spanish because
and our older brother is in the Mexican school.
We were all in a school called Colegio Americano, which they taught English, and we were learning Spanish at the time. And so then Mom and Dad were like, change of heart.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it was their plan all along, and they just hadn't revealed it to me yet. But they have a sit down with me, and they're like, so Heidi, we're noticing you've lived here a long time, and your Spanish is pretty rough. So we don't want you to end up that girl that grew up in Mexico and doesn't know how to say anything, and so you're going to go to Mexican school next year. And it was devastating. 8th grade, which is not a joyous year for most people anyway.
Oh, it was the worst year of my life.
And 8th grade in a school where you don't speak the language well enough to have a clue of what's going on. Yeah.
So gnarly.
It was brutal. Me with my great attitude was like, all right, it's a year, I'll just go and write notes to my friends at the missionary kids school, and it'll be great, and we'll survive. That was all, it was just, I was in survival mode. And I had so many friends who were just like, oh my goodness, your parents hate you. I can't believe that your parents would do such a horrible thing.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, though.
So that was hard, even though I knew in my heart that they were doing probably the best thing for me, and what they were doing was out of love and for my own good. It did not make it easier. And on top of that, Mom decided, well, I'm just going to start talking to you in Spanish now. Another challenge was that Spanish teaching style is so radically different from what I was used to, and a lot of it is dictation, which means the teacher stands up and basically dictates your textbook to you, and you are supposed to write it down neatly and be able to study it and extract knowledge from it at the end of the day. Well, I didn't know where the words started, I didn't know where they ended, and so I was just writing sounds and trying to put spaces and keep up. But what I didn't realize is, like, when she said punto y aparte, all I had to do was put a period and start a next paragraph, and I was writing out punto y aparte.
To add insult to injury, like you already don't know what you're writing,
Yeah.
and then you're writing too much, and then
I'm writing too much, and then I'm way behind, and then I don't know where to pick up, and it was a
and that's what you're
fiasco.
supposed to use to study.
And that's
also.
what I needed to use to study. Needless to say, I flunked everything but English and PE my first grading period. And I'd bring the notes home to my older brother, whose Spanish was far superior than mine, and I'd say, so what does this mean? And he would look at it and say, nothing. When I think it gave him some satisfaction, let's be honest. And
man.
so it was rough. And every time kids laughed, I didn't know if they were laughing at me or not, but I felt like shame as if they were, you know, because I just didn't know. And
it's tough.
It was hard. It was hard. And at the end of the year, I was like, okay, I survived. I didn't really learn that much Spanish. I probably know a little bit more. And then my parents sat down with me and said, honey, you didn't get the point of the exercise. It was to learn Spanish. And long story short, I was there for 2 more years. Mainly or partly because by 10th grade there wasn't any other option really. It was hard, it was good. Once I realized I was there to learn Spanish, like it wasn't just for a year exercise experiment, I think my attitude shifted a bit at least.
Did you, I mean, you didn't become angry and rebellious because they were kind of forcing you to do that and you didn't want to? You were at the point where you were understanding the benefits and we're going to just try
I knew the benefits. I wanted to learn. It wasn't that I didn't want to learn, and I realized I needed to learn to survive at that point. So I started making more of an effort. And I remember very vividly the day the first time I got yelled at for talking in class, and I was talking in Spanish to my classmates, and I was thrilled. I was so happy. I went home and told my parents, and they were delighted, and it was a great victory. And we all saw it as that, and they knew that sure I shouldn't have been talking, but hey, I was talking, so it was great.
In the language,
in the goal language
you were supposed to acquire.
It was a win.
Wow.
It was a win. So I've thought a lot about, I mean, Holly's Spanish is beautiful. I love watching her videos to help me learn and refresh my Spanish. I did end up going back to Mexico for my first year of college, but I have not lived there since the early 90s. And
How is it that long ago? I remember you going to college and I feel like it wasn't that long ago.
It's been a while. It was in the 1900s, as my son would remind me.
I know, right?
Did they have electricity in the 1900s, Mom?
In some places.
Yes. Anyway, some of the things that I saw that have held me back in my language learning that I would challenge you to examine and see if they're holding you back are fear of failure and perfectionism. Like, I didn't want to talk unless I said it right, dang it. I didn't want to look like an idiot. I didn't want to look stupid. I didn't want to say something that was inappropriate.
And that's a recipe for never saying a word, because it's the only way you can not offend someone or not make a mistake.
And a few times, I mean, I remember trying and people not understanding me and realizing I'd made a fool of myself, and then like going back into my little shell and being, I mean, I was super extroverted with my English speaking friends and the super introvert with the Spanish speaking ones because of that. And I've realized, and it's still a struggle with me, but the best way to learn is to practice and to make yourself make mistakes, and that you're gonna get past the point where you're making tons of mistakes a lot faster if you're willing to
fool of
make
yourself.
them. Yes,
right?
It's wiser to be willing to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah, once you can get over that, it's like nothing can really stop you. Like, all right, well, I said that wrong. Like,
I learned something.
Exactly.
Surround yourself with people
who
who will correct you. That is important, though. If they just smile and wave, it's not going to...
Or like your friend you were saying that told you,
I did have a friend.
Cute.
Her dad was British, and she was a lifeline for me, my first years especially. She spoke English with a lovely British accent, but I decided one day, okay, forget this, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna speak Spanish. And so I tried talking Spanish to her. She's like, oh, listen to you, she's so cute. And I'm like, forget that. I am not
Heidi
interested in being
is not cute, never has been.
No. So
That's a good one though, friends that will correct you. Like, I mean, would you want them to just stop you if you're in the middle of a conversation, stop your flow and correct you, or maybe just write it down for later?
I think just say it and let you keep going, like not stop and give you a grammar lesson, but just correct and move on.
Yeah, that helps. Because otherwise it's like having cilantro in your teeth.
Right.
You're like,
you have no idea.
You never told me, and I've been here pronouncing it like this for how many years?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and I guess the same is true if you have a friend that's trying to learn your mother tongue. It's a loving thing to correct and encourage, but don't call them cute, maybe. I also know that I had a fear of losing my identity because I saw other children of parents who were from English-speaking countries who had totally integrated into society, Mexican society, and become,
Which is
it's a great thing. It's awesome. They had become completely Mexican, basically. And to the point where their English was extremely awkward and accented. thick accent.
Which is crazy to think that you could just abandon your mother tongue and forget it.
Right.
And just feel completely uncomfortable while trying to speak it. Like, how could you go that far, right? It's like it's going too far to this side. You don't have to throw one out to acquire the other.
So
but that's what you were
I saw the value of being bilingual, but I did not want to become monolingual in a language that wasn't my own. And I had a fear of that, and it was probably like about as valid as me being scared of becoming anorexic, but
nobody
it
in
was
our
there.
family has ever had that problem. That's amazing.
So yeah, aptitude is a factor. Holly does have an aptitude for language and for repetition and parroting. You always have since you were one, I remember.
I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about, but I do like to be a little parrot. I don't know.
You do a good job of it, and it's served you well. And I think the attitude is a big thing too, a big piece of the puzzle. And so it is fascinating. We're from the same family. We've lived in the same places. We've had different experiences and different results. But for both of us, learning Spanish has enriched our lives greatly, and we would not want it any other way.
We wouldn't be who we are. And I love also that even though our experiences are so different, we can still get together and laugh about things and like, oh, that's what was going on in your head during that time. Like, it is bizarre that Heidi was going through her own drama. We could have written a series about it. And meanwhile, I was going through mine, you know what I mean? And I would come home and I was just like, Mom thinks that I'm more capable than I really am. I was like, they think I'm gonna be able to just pick this up. It's not that easy, you guys. I thought I would just end up disappointing them and I wouldn't learn like they thought I would.
You went to infinity and beyond. They expected
It worked.
to get out of it. It worked. It worked. So for those who might wonder, I have times in my life at this point where I do think in Spanish, and it's a really fun thing. It's
do you
really
ever dream in Spanish?
I have dreamed in Spanish, and I do it from time to time. English is my dominant language, and it probably always will be. But it is super fun, and there are times when I'm finding myself translating, like thinking, how do I say that in English instead of the other way around.
And sometimes there's just a Spanish word that more adequately fits a situation. You're like, if only I could explain to you.
Yes.
I love hearing about your experience. I love that we recorded this video in Spanish and in English. If you guys are interested, we have the Spanish version as well.
You can hear
It might have taken
in
us
our fluency levels.
twice as long to record, but it's out there. So
it is.
Thank you, Heidi, so much for joining me. I love that you're on the channel.
Oh, it's been fun, and it's such a treat to be in your home.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love you so much, Holly.
Love you.
Such a cool thing.
Thank you guys for joining us.
Bye.
See you next time.